The inside story on the issues that affect you and your community. This is Local 12 Newsmakers.
After a century of serving the women of Cincinnati in a dignified manner, the Anna Louise Inn has had to fend off a hostile takeover. Good morning and welcome to Local 12 Newsmakers. Over the last several months, the Anna Louise Inn has come under pressure from Western Southern Life Insurance to vacate the property it has occupied for over a century. Jeff Hirsch prepared this background report last Monday as the issue came to a head at City Council.
Julie McDonald has never been to City Hall, but today McDonald and several other residents of the Anna Louise Inn told council members, "Save our home."
It means a lot to me. All the people down there has been so great to me because I'm recently going through chemo and that, so it's great. I wouldn't be at any other place but there.
Next to Lytle Park, the Anna Louise Inn is a prime piece of real estate. Towering over it, the huge new office tower built by the realty arm of Western Southern Insurance. Western Southern wants to buy the inn and turn it into upscale condos as part of a plan for new housing and shops near the park. But there's a problem.
This is our building.
Cincinnati Union Bethel, the social service agency which owns the inn, is not selling. Western Southern has offered a good price and the promise to help the residents find a new home, which some, like Councilman Jeff Birding, say is a more than fair trade-off to help build up Cincinnati.
There's nothing more important to the city right now than increase our tax base.
At issue today, a $2.7 million city loan to help fix up the inn. Western Southern asked council to say no, but the majority on Finance Committee said yes. Save the inn, forget the condos.
On Wednesday, City Council, by a vote of 8-1, the one being Jeff Birding, who has now announced his resignation from council, approved $2.6 million of federal loan to assist with the $12 million renovation of the inn. To speak about the role of the inn and its future, I am joined this morning by Stephen P. MacConnell, the president and CEO of Cincinnati Union Bethel. CUB is the oldest human services agency in the region. It was founded in 1830 to serve the boatmen who plied the rivers and their families, and has been headquartered in the Anna Louise Inn since it opened in 1909 with the help of Charles P. and Anna Sinton Taft, who lived right across the street, and Mary Carol Melton, the executive vice president of Cincinnati Union Bethel and the director of the nationally acclaimed Off the Streets program that works with women seeking to escape prostitution. Steve, Mary Carol, welcome back to Newsmakers.
Thank you.
I know this has been a difficult number of months that this has been going on, and my understanding is that some time ago, maybe a year and a half or in that range, that you actually sat down and the original suggestion by Western Southern that they wanted to buy your property. So you were willing to talk at one point, and what happened?
Well, over the course of really my tenure at Cincinnati Union Bethel, which is 10 years, we explored a number of projects, and our board appointed an Anna Louise Inn strategy team. They were exploring the best possible way to carry out our mission, and that included people that had come to us with an interest in purchasing. It included renovation plans by ourselves, which we weren't rich enough to do, but that's how it came to be that Western Southern spoke to us as well.
And was this an active negotiation which just at the end fell through, or was this, what happened here?
Well, it was not an active negotiation. It didn't work out really from the very beginning, and the negotiations terminated in about June of '09. Mm-hmm. So we both agreed that we would be exploring other options.
And then you pursued this other funding for the renovation, right, Mary Carol?
We did. I was appointed to work on the city's Homeless to Homes planning team. Mm-hmm. And I was on the subcommittee for single women, and in my first meeting someone said we have to figure out a way to make Anna Louise Inn part of this new city initiative. And I met Steve Smith from the model group, an excellent developer who is really skilled in affordable housing and knew about tax credits. And we started talking, and the rest, I guess we can say, is history. But that really is how it happened, that the city planning for that Homeless to Homes initiative really targeted that the Anna Louise Inn was an important piece of it.
I want to be clear, though, because one of the things that has bothered me in the reporting that I've seen in the Inquirer has consistently used the term shelter to refer to Anna Louise Inn. Many of our viewers probably have never been inside Anna Louise Inn. I've had the privilege of being there many times. Shelter doesn't sound right at all to me. Is that a term you use?
No, it's not. The inn is not a shelter. It's since its beginning, it's been a residence boarding house style for the resident women in the inn who pay rent, and we have other programs for women in the building as well. But it's not a homeless shelter.
Yeah, no, it never has been.
No, it never has been.
And for people who don't know the history, I mean, it's absolutely essential. And I tried to allude to it there about Charles B. and Anna Sinton Taft, who lived in what we know as the Taft Museum. I mean, they were shocked by what was happening in that area of town because there were factories going up on both sides of their residential home. And they did a number of things to make that area what is probably one of the great pockets in downtown Cincinnati. And including, they wanted diverse housing, and they wanted dignified housing for young women who were moving to the city to work in the factories in that area. I mean, it wasn't like they wanted to only have one kind of people living in there. That's what I find so ironic about this.
Well, and again, I think you're right, Dan, that the residency itself has been an institution of safe and affordable housing for over 100 years. And as Steve said, we do have other programs within the building. The main focus of the building and the main focus of the renovation is that the current configuration will evolve into 85 permanent supportive housing units for women, and that we're just upgrading the amenities internally.
Let's take a look at the capacity question, because I think it's important for people to realize the theoretical capacity is listed at 260, but I don't think you've been running at that for a long, long time.
No.
And so the current capacity, 163, and after renovations, 152. And then you have the family living center, 42 is going to stay the same, and off the streets, we'll get to that, will stay the same. So actually the capacity is going down. Why does the capacity go down? What are you going to actually do on the inside?
Well, the capacity is going down because we are converting from dormitory style living of one room for each lady with bathrooms on the end of the hall to studio apartments. So the size of their units will be more graceful and dignified, and there's room to put 85 of those in our current living space.
And you're going to add such things as air conditioning?
Air conditioning, central heat in a way that is going to be much more energy efficient, small kitchenettes so that women can cook in their own facility. So those total capacity, as Steve said, the capacity will go down. So the other programs are part of that overall capacity. The current rooms for the women will be 85.
And by the way, I'll be a lot happier to come to meetings there in the summer.
Yes, exactly.
We'll be happy to have you.
The other side of this is not just the capacity side, but the question of the Western Southern kept asserting that the question of who lives there is the problem. And the question of crime, the question in that neighborhood, first off, I want to, there's been a consistency over 100 years of who lives there, the type of person, but who does live there now, and what are we talking about, particularly in relationship to crime?
Yeah, well, the demographics are ladies who have lived there from 1 year to 30 or more years. Racially, it's a mixed population, pretty evenly mixed, and in my tenure there has been no crime that has involved the ladies in the Anna Louise Inn. That's sort of a myth that's been spread. But Lieutenant Colonel Jim Whalen has said it's one of the safest places in town in the Lytle Park area, including the women of the Anna Louise Inn.
And Mary Carol, I referenced again at the program because you've been on this program to talk about this innovative program called Off the Streets.
Yes.
To help women who want to escape prostitution and get out. Does that, though, bring in to the neighborhood, I mean, ask the question the way it's been stated, does that bring people who commit crimes into that neighborhood? Is that a problem?
Well, the one thing I would say about that, Dan, is we do have the Off the Streets program at the Anna Louise Inn since 2006. As Steve said, we have never had a problem. Off the Streets program is helping women in the same way, really, that the residential rooms are, with a safe place to live. They're there because they are leaving a life that put them and maybe the community at some risk. We have had absolutely no problems. And we also, with the Family Living Center that is at the inn, and it's been there since 1994.
And what is technically, what is the Family Living Center?
It is a program run by Mercy Franciscan, one of our social service partners, and it is a transitional program for families who are looking for more permanent housing. So it's really an assistance for families. But the programs within the building are very separate. So we don't know. The answer is the Off the Streets program has not created any
One of
concerns.
the things that was raised by Western Southern was they were willing to trade, or sounds like they were willing to trade, Brackett Village up and over the Rhine for Anna Louise Inn, which I find ironic because generally the city's policy now is let's not put all social services in over the Rhine. So yeah, that was weird. But anyway, be that as it may, why is the Anna Louise Inn a better situation than sort of the townhouse development of Brackett Village?
Well, the nature of the residences at Brackett Village, I think, fit well where they are, but they're individual residences with entrances and exits for each one, a courtyard in the middle. And one of our features that's attracted women is the safety of one entrance and one exit, which we've always held very close.
And there is that whole congregate living. I mean,
Well,
people are living
exactly.
together.
That's the other thing. I mean, Julie, who was in Jeff's piece,
Right.
said, this is my family. I mean, here's a woman who otherwise would be somewhere by herself. She interacts with women every day who encourage her through her treatment. And she said, this is my family. And that's how the women feel down there. It doesn't matter what program they're in or whether, you know, at what part of the inn they're in.
And again, that's the feel you get when you go in there.
They feel
Yes.
that this is their family, and it is their family.
What is the schedule for this renovation, and sort of how long will this take you, and when's it going to start?
Construction will start in the summer or early fall of 11 this year, and be completed at about the same time in 12.
Okay, so about a year's work.
Yes.
And will people be displaced and put out?
The goal is to renovate the building in phases, so as few women as possible are disturbed or put out. And we have a transition plan in place for that.
Okay. I want to thank you for being here this morning.
you.
And you know, I don't usually express my own opinion, but I love Lytle Park. I think it's one of the great spaces in this community, and it works because it's such a diverse and complex place.
Yes.
And Anna Louise Inn is part of that, and great mission, great history, great role in the community, and all of the things you do. I'm not just talking about the building. It's not architecture's only one tiny little piece of it, but what you've done. So congratulations, move forward, and we'll have you back here as you finish up with the construction.
Thank you.
Stay tuned. This past week, Andrew Keith was arrested and charged for molesting children in his mother's home daycare facility. After the break, a discussion of the policy implications raised by this case. Welcome back. This past week, Andrew Keith was arrested and charged with abusing children back in 2002 and 2003 in the care of his mother in her home daycare facility. Rich Jaffe prepared this background on Keith and his mother.
Andrew Keith was arrested by police and federal agents last Thursday on his 27th birthday. Today, his attorney tried to get him out on bond, saying, according to the evidence, he hadn't molested any children or photographed naked little boys since February 24, 2003, nearly 8 years ago. In the indictment, investigators cite 11 dates over 8 months from June 2002 to February 2003, when Keith allegedly took obscene pictures of children who attended his mother's Westchester daycare. Prosecutors now say there are hundreds of such pictures and more victims. The day he was arrested at his mother's Mason apartment, she didn't want to appear on camera, but she told me that she told Andrew to get rid of the pictures, and last March he did, but he made a mistake, sending them to someone else. That someone was another pedophile in South Carolina. She admits while she ran the daycare, she knew her son was a pedophile.
He was not a harmful pedophile. He was the kind that would play and enjoy being a child. See, Andrew's socially immature. He was not stupid, very intelligent.
But you knew that he had a passion for little boys?
Man, I had a detector for that. I thought, oh my God, it happened to him. Could he be, and I got to talking to him and he broke down.
As terrible as the Andrew Keith case is, it also raises a larger issue of public policy. Ohio is one of only 5 states in the country that has no requirement to license child care operations that care for fewer than 6 children, or 6 or fewer children, in home care operations. I am joined now by Sallie Westheimer, the Executive Director of 4C for Children and the region's recognized leader in the early childhood field. 4C for Children was founded in 1972 and as a resource and referral agency for a 23-county region stretching from Dayton in the north through Cincinnati to northern Kentucky. Sallie, welcome to Newsmakers.
Thanks, glad to be here.
What's it practically mean when we say that in Ohio there doesn't have to be any licensing for family-based child care for if you have only 6 or fewer children? What's practically, what does that mean?
Well, there's a significant number of these home-based child care businesses. This is where many families choose child care, particularly for infants, toddlers, and preschoolers. So it's fairly prevalent, and yet there are no inspections. Nobody presents guidelines or talks to the provider about safety for children. And in the case we're talking about today, there are no background checks for either the provider or any other adults in her home.
Well, this is, on lots of levels, this is almost astounding because my understanding is we have to license, the state license and demand some sort of standards and training for all sorts of things for dog groomers and manicurists. Right. And is that true?
Hairstylists. There are, yes, that's absolutely true. There are guidelines and protections on so many things, and yet in these most formative years when children are very much at risk because they can't express or explain what's happening to them, there is no oversight.
So does this mean, I know you've already said it, but I want to reinforce it. This means not only don't people have to have any background checks, or the state, for larger centers, either in family settings, yes, or larger centers, state inspectors go in and measure what's going on, make sure ratios are correct between staff and children and cleanliness and all of that. There are nobody ever goes into any of these sorts of situations?
Right, and the inspections you're talking about are, most of which are unannounced, and so it isn't as if you can plan for the day. Now there is one exception. If the home-based child care provider accepts children whose care is subsidized because the working parent is relatively low income, there is a certification process and there are inspections. But if it's a fee-paying parent who does not receive any assistance, there is absolutely no oversight.
I am sure, in fact I know, that you and others in the field have been arguing for some time that Ohio ought to join the other 45 states in correcting this. What's the problem? What's the argument against this?
Well, there was a great deal of support for this building up in the Ohio House and the Ohio Senate. Many sponsors passed out of committee when the economic downturn occurred, right at the moment of a great deal of support for Ohio joining the other states. It was bipartisan. Then it became viewed as being too expensive. So at this point, we are hearing little or no objection to the concept of regulating home-based childcare businesses, as we do with most every other kind of business in Ohio. Now the concern is affordability. I'm not sure that is a totally legitimate concern, because the great majority of these home-based businesses don't report taxes, don't report their income, and don't pay taxes. And we believe that if these homes were licensed and doing business above the table, that there would be tax revenues that would come to the state that would more than offset the cost of inspections.
So it's part of the cash economy, and nobody's reporting it on either side.
Right.
So are there people in the state legislature who are champions for this? Are there, people who have consistently stood out and pushed licensing? And are any of them local?
Not in the last 2 years. There has been
year.
no interest in this in the last 2 years. Now, there is a provision in a bill that passed that the state can write regulations for home-based childcare businesses, but there are no resources to enforce those.
Okay. A lot of parents, and you were mentioning especially with younger children, prefer some sort of more smaller home family-based setting.
Right.
What are you telling, in light of a case like this, what are you telling parents? What are you trying to suggest that they do to make sure that they are protecting their children and putting their children in a safe place?
Well, we aren't telling them anything different than we've been telling them for a long time, and that is to ask lots of questions, visit as often as you can. This is a wonderful form of childcare. It provides families with children of different ages to have their kids together. It's a home-like setting, which many parents really would want for their children while they're at work. And most of the family childcare providers are really wonderful. So we strongly encourage people to look into this kind of childcare. We also tell them to trust their instincts. If something feels wrong, to look into it further or leave, and to ask lots of questions and do their own due diligence.
That sort of asking questions, you can ask, I don't want to presume, but you could ask questions of somebody who isn't necessarily going to give you a straight answer, because the problem in the home wouldn't necessarily be them. It might be a son in this particular case who is just childlike. I mean, I just couldn't believe that quote from the mother there. So you're not necessarily going to get the right answer. So how do you really test things? How do you really, what are some of the concrete questions you ought to be asking rather than just the obvious ones?
Well, I do want to emphasize the value of being able to drop by unannounced, other than the time where you're supposed to be picking up your child. Now, many working parents can't do that easily, but they could have a relative go or somebody else go at an unusual time. So I do think occasionally visiting at unusual times. In terms of asking questions, I don't know anything about the circumstances of this provider.
We're not commenting about this
But
one.
should there be another adult hanging around the house, I would ask a lot of questions about that, what that person does during the day, what interaction that person has with the children. And if I don't feel totally comfortable, if something feels off, I would trust what I'm feeling about that and find another option.
One of the great things, I want to make sure that we get to this, because we're just about out of time, that 4C does is you have a website with a lot of information, plus, and we'll put that up now, it's www.4cforchildren.org, but you also have 3 blogs going.
We do.
You have a blog. You've already blogged about this situation, and that's how I sort of became aware of this. You have some other staff members blog specifically for parents, and some of those have raised some of the questions that we were just getting at. And you have blogs for providers. And I really encourage people, especially if they have children that are looking for childcare, to check out that 4C for children.
Well, thanks, Dan. They're very tailored to what's going on in the community and very helpful. We've had fabulous feedback from parents and from providers about how much support
really
they
good.
get from that.
Thank you. And thank you for making Newsmakers a part of your Sunday morning. Join us again next week, and have a good week.